Good evening and thank you for joining us. My name is Karen Corman and I have the privilege of being the Executive Director of the UIC Alumni Association. Welcome to the UIC Alumni Exchange Series. We host weekly events that bring you news, knowledge, and entertainment to help you explore, connect, and even escape from the everyday with a community of UIC alumni, faculty, and staff experts. You'll hear me say this just a few times this evening, but I encourage you to visit go.uic.edu/alumni exchange for the latest and greatest programming. And with that, I'm excited to start our program this evening by welcoming CBA alumna Liz Herrera, who will walk us through a process of self-reflection, analyzing skills, and developing a professional brand to help you have the tools you'll need to have an organized action plan for your job search. Thanks so much, Liz, for being with us this evening, and I'll turn it over to you to begin the discussion.
Great, thank you so much, Karen. I'm happy to be here, and welcome to Job Search Strategies during COVID. My name is Liz Herrera, and I'm just going to give a quick intro. While it feels like it was just yesterday, I graduated from UIC LAS in December 2000. Can't believe it's been 20 years. I'm a Spanish major. And after graduation, I entered the field of education, but it was not until 2007 that I started my career in career services, and UIC opened the doors for me. Upon entering career services, little did I know that I was going to start during the time where we entered a recession. So that was an experience for me as a rookie in the field. So I learned a lot of strategies and had the opportunity to work with a lot of students, recent grads entering during that job market. I was there for about 5 years, and I loved my colleagues over in career services, but then I went over to the School of Public Health, where I established the career services office there, and I had the opportunity to work with public health professionals, graduate students, and there again I got to learn a lot of different strategies in helping these recent grads find job opportunities. And during that time, being in the field, you get people reaching out to you for advice on career development, resume readiness, job interview, and all those things. So then I launched a side hustle. I don't consider myself an entrepreneur, but I have a little side hustle, Liz Career Coaching, which I work with mid-level professionals. And then now I'm back in LAS. I am the Director of Career Development and Major Exploration, and I've been there for a little over a year. Now that's a little bit about me, and I just wanted to know and get an idea of who's here today. So I'd like to take a quick poll. And so here are some questions. I would like to know if you're a recent grad and you're ready to begin your job search, or maybe you were recently laid off and you're seeking new opportunities. You want to be prepared in case your employment situation changes, or you're just curious about the topic. I appreciate everybody participating in the poll. This is great. Okay, so we have a lot of curious people, but we do, as I expected, some recent graduates ready to embark their job search. People just want to be prepared. I can definitely understand that. And then we have people who have experienced a layoff. This is not, I'm not surprised by the audience, but I just wanted to gauge. So thank you so much for participating. And we can close the poll now. I just want to ensure that as I'm going through the presentation that I address some specifics that may, be specific to some of our participants today. Okay. So what do we know? And I'm going to go ahead and just so you can focus on this. So what do we know? We know that the unemployment rate is at 13.3% as of May 2020, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. And we expect that that number is actually higher. This can feel very discouraging, and many people are thinking that they shouldn't even try. We know that job offers and internships have been rescinded, and it is very normal to feel like it is useless to look for any type of job opportunity at this point. We know that job searching is stressful and unpredictable, and we know that at this time it is going to take longer. If you are a recent grad or if you recently experienced a layoff, this can be frustrating. You may be experiencing anxiety, you're feeling overwhelmed, which is completely normal. Again, in my experience, I've worked with people, again, recent grads and people who've been unemployed, and I have walked through that journey with many individuals. Right now, there's so much noise out there, and we're consuming so much information every day. But for today, during this short hour that we'll be together, I want to focus on the positive and the action steps that you can be taking right now. Because guess what? There are companies that are hiring. And some of my career colleagues will also attest that we get opportunities that are shared with us and that employers want us to share with our students. But I want you to know that this is a time for you to really think outside the box. You have to be flexible. You may have to redirect, step out of your comfort zone, and really think of an action plan. There are things that you can control. I tell my students this all the time. You have to focus on the things that you can control, because in the job search process, there are going to be a ton of things that you are not able to control. And we're going to talk about that today. And I'm going to share some strategies to help you get started. I also recognize that everyone has a unique situation, and all of you are all in different phases of life and career. So I want you to take this presentation as you see fit for your own situation. So again, as I tell my students, take out a piece of paper and let's get started and ready to brainstorm. Okay, so this is our agenda, but basically our agenda is the job search process. This is just a snapshot of what I typically share with my students and my clients. In my experience working with recent graduates, career transitioners, and people who've experienced a layoff, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ask in the chat box, what do you think the first thing people do when they start looking for a job? What is the first step that you feel people typically do? I'm curious. And Karen, if you can share with me some of the things that people are putting on the chat.
Sure,
What is the first thing people do when they're like, all right, I'm ready for that job search?
So we're hearing update resume, run to career services, prepare resume, update resume seems to be the theme.
Yes. Okay. So I wanted to kind of gauge that because I have here on my notes, I put the first step and the big mistake is sending out a ton of resumes and with the hope of getting a callback. But I guarantee you, again, in my experience, there's always disappointment. So we like to call the spray and pray, where it's like, let me just send out a ton of things. And let me tell you, my husband was laid off twice within a year. And that feeling of just restlessness, and it's like you kind of want to do that and just start and just send things out. But you have to be strategic. You have to be intentional with the process. For many of you, this may be an opportunity to put a reset, again, redirect and reflect as you prepare for that process. So here we have the job search process. So the beginning part is self-reflection, really thinking about your interests, your values, your skills. You have to start with yourself. What is it that you're looking for? We often forget about us and what we want. The next thing is really identifying your points of marketability. You have experience, whether you're an established professional or even a recent grad, going back to your academic training, your internships. What are some of the things that you are ready to contribute to the job market? But then you also have to know how to articulate your value. You have to know how to tell your story. Then you start polishing up your professional packages and you're confident and you're able to update your resume, your LinkedIn profile, your cover letter, and your interview techniques. You have to establish an online presence, especially now. Identify companies of interest, and again, stepping outside of the box and really learning about who's out there, what's out there, and of course, establishing your network, your immediate network, connecting with alumni, professionals, and connecting with recruiters, which I know that can be a scary thing for a lot of people. I also wanted to note that I have put together a guide with all the links that I will be referencing during today's presentation. Okay, but before we get started with all of that, I know that one of the big questions that I've been getting is, well, who's hiring? That's a great question, because we know that there are a lot of industries that have taken a huge hit, such as the arts, entertainment, and travel. But there are industries and companies that are hiring, tech, financial industry, e-learning, health. And I wanted to actually show you, I have a few links here, but instead of telling you a bunch of companies and industries, I wanted to show you for myself right here. This is an example of some of the companies that are hiring, and this is through the Muse. And here they are updating this list, and this was updated June 18th. And this is a nice resource to kind of browse, to really look at the various companies that are out there. And this can be helpful in terms of just compiling those organizations that you can later on and do some research or potentially connect with people in these companies. But I just wanted to just show you a section where you can potentially look through that. Can you see my screen, Karen?
We see the Zoom.
There we go. There we go. Okay. So then I've also added another link here to Hiring Now, and it's the same thing. It's a list of companies that are hiring, and it's good to kind of flesh out and look and see and compile a list, because that's one of the things that you want to do, is you want to have a list of companies that you may potentially be interested in so that you can do some research. Okay, so the next piece is the self-reflection. I'm going to go ahead and minimize this so I can see. With self-reflection, some of the questions that you can ask yourself, and this is more strengths-based, is think of a time when you were in your element. What were you doing? When were you in the zone? What aspects of your current job or most previous job did you enjoy the most? What did that look like? What do you value? What is important to you in your position? I think this is a question, again, that we oftentimes forget. What skills do you have that you enjoy using the most? So again, this is a time to really think about previous experiences. Now, if this is something that you're interested in doing and further exploring, I recommend some assessments, and there are a ton of free online assessments that you can use. So for instance, your values, your skills, your interests, and again, I'm including that in the guide. You can also look into StrengthsFinder. So if you're not familiar with StrengthsFinder, it's an assessment that focuses on your top 5 innate talents. And this tool is used to uncover areas of strengths that you may not be aware of because they come so natural. This report provides language that you can use as you articulate your strengths. So I use this with students. I taught a few courses, and I'm currently teaching professional and career development courses. And when I have students use StrengthsFinder, they come back and say, you know, I was able to talk about my strengths during my job interview, or I was able to build up my resume because of what I have found. So it provides that language. And then the other one is the strong interest inventory. So if you're interested in looking at something more in depth, this helps individuals identify their work personality by exploring interests and ideas for occupations. Now, I will note that this particular certificate inventory requires a certified practitioner to interpret the results. I am a certified practitioner, and I'm happy to share more information, and I'll give you my contact information at the end of this presentation. Okay, so one of the other steps, and I'll go ahead and start my video so I can be here with all of you. You want to think about your points of marketability. So the first thing that you want to do is assess and take inventory of your experience. You know, what have you done? So one of the things that I always share with students and clients is create a master resume. And this could be pages and pages and length. Now this is for your eyes only. Go back to, you know, any type of extracurricular, community service, everything that you've done. Because a lot of times we often forget, you know, what we've done yesterday. So you want to take inventory of your experience. I want you to take time and look at the different positions that you've held. What are some of the obstacles or challenges that you have faced in some of these previous roles? Employers want to see problem-solving skills, so you have to be able to tell your story. What solutions have you implemented? I think that in all our roles, we are problem solvers. What does that look like, and what has that looked like in your role? What unique contributions have you made? Again, one of the things that I always talk to students in preparing them for the job search is, what did you do different in the role that maybe someone with the same job title, maybe they would have done differently? What did you bring that was unique, that was different, and that maybe a supervisor pointed out? Are you the go-to person for something? I think sometimes we tend to overlook certain strengths and skills because, again, they come so naturally. But you might be the tech person, like, oh, we know that we can go to Wendy because she is the best person that can figure out technology. Or I had a colleague, her name is Laura. I used to always go to her when there was something, you know, I'm like, oh, I need to figure something out last minute. And she was my go-to person. So what do people go to you for? And have you had to adapt to new working environments? So some of my recent grads or some of established professionals, any global experience, study abroad, anything where you can showcase that you've adapted to a new environment, employers are going to value that, especially now. And again, what are your technical abilities? What kind of databases have you worked with? So one of the things that I always like to point out to my students and to my clients is focusing on some of these skills because they are also transferable and portable, and you can apply them into different roles, and being aware of these things. And then what skills are you looking to build? So as you're looking at different job postings and you're looking at what some of these companies may be looking for, you might find that maybe you need to sharpen up your skills in a certain area, maybe a certain technical experience. I will tell you, as soon as we started this stay-at-home order, and I knew we were going to start using WebEx, and I had to do my advising, I went to LinkedIn Learning, and I'm like, let me learn everything I can about WebEx. So I do practice what I preach. If you need a little help with thinking about skills, this is something that I always like to share, and this is through the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And this is based on a survey for about 150 employers responded, and these are attributes that employers seek on a candidate's resume. So you'll see here that the top skill is problem solving, ability to work in a team. So you'll see the breakout of the percentages of what employers are looking for. Now, it's not simply enough to include on your skill section of your resume that you have strong problem solving skills or that you can work in a team. You want to be able to showcase that. So that these are important skills. How can you prove that? Through your bullet points, or how can you prove that? Through your success stories. So this is just to kind of give you an idea of what companies or employers are looking for specifically, and how can you add that to your narrative. Polishing up your professional package. So once you kind of know what it is that you want to do, how you want to package yourself, what you want to sell, what's your point of marketability, now we get to enhancing your resume. The very first thing, as I had mentioned before, is that people do the spray and pray, where they just send out one general resume to everyone. Now I know that it can be extremely time consuming to create a resume, but I always tell students, I would rather send out 5 tailored resumes than 100 general ones. You need to know who's your target audience. And I'm going to rewind a little bit here. I always tell people that there are 3 audiences that you need to think of. One is the applicant tracking system. So this is the robot, right? This is where you're applying online and there are filters being created on what they're looking for in a candidate. So you have to be very, again, strategic in really deciphering that job posting and identifying those keywords that you can integrate on that resume. Because I know a lot of people that have been overlooked for positions because their resume don't contain those keywords. The second audience is the recruiter. So these are individuals that are looking at the job posting and comparing and seeing if your resume aligns with what they're looking for. And sometimes, let me tell you, they're constantly looking at applications. 10 seconds, you have to connect the dots. You have to tell your story very concisely. So thinking about the recruiter. Then you have your hiring manager. This is the person that's really going, once those applications have dwindled down and they have the top 10, this is where you want to stand out from that pile. They want to look and see your accomplishments. What have you done? Your success stories. So I always want to be, mindful of telling people about the three audiences to bear in mind. So when thinking about your resume, it's not simply enough to list, like I said before, the skills, but how are those skills, how have they come to life? So think of experiences so that you can reflect on those selling points. One question I get from people as far as resumes is, do I need to include an objective? No, if you have an objective, you want to take that out of your resume, you can include a profile, a summary. This is a brief 2 or 3 sentences where you can integrate some of those keywords. But keep in mind that it's not about what you're looking for, it's more about what you have to offer. So for instance, if you're applying for a position where they want somebody who is savvy and has strong experience with SPSS, or working with online learning, maybe specific software, then that is a great place to include that. Or that maybe that you're bilingual. So you want to convert that function-based bullet to achievement-based bullets, and I'm going to show you some examples of what that will look like. All right, so here's just a brief formula. I know that there's so many things you can include on a bullet point, but one of the things that I want you to take a look at when you go back and revise your resume, if any of your bullet points begin with duties included, responsible for, assisted, want you to remove that. You want to begin your resume with a strong action verb. You want to make sure that it demonstrates some type of skill set, and if possible, showcasing a result, or what was the purpose of what you were doing. You want to show impact, and you want to quantify whenever possible. Now, I'm not going to read all of these to you, but I just want to show you an example of some statements. So on the left-hand side, you'll find some passive statements that I have seen a lot of resumes, and then just some ideas for some stronger resumes. So I'm only going to read the first one. So here is, gave training classes on various health topics. So that's very general. The way that I would, probably revise this would be conducted 25 training classes on health topics, including diabetes, obesity prevention, and substance abuse to Spanish-speaking peer health educators. So now this showcases how many that you're Spanish-speaking and that you know specific health topics. So again, this is just an example I wanted to include in the slides because you will have access to this information at the end of the presentation. I do want to mention cover letters, and I'm only going to give you 5 quick tips on this. I have been on both sides as a job seeker, but also I've been on a ton of job search committees where I hear a lot of conversation around cover letters. One question that I do get is people will say, Liz, is it really important to write a cover letter? I hear that employers don't read it. That may be the case. There may be employers like, they don't have time, they don't want to read the cover letters. But I will tell you that I have worked with a handful of people that do read cover letters. So you want to be prepared in case you get that recruiter or that committee member that really does care about the cover letter. So one mistake that I find is people writing generic cover letters. And then be careful with the copying and pasting because you may be applying to General Motors. I'm excited to work for General Motors, and then thank you so much, and I look forward to hearing from someone at American Academy of Pediatrics. So I have seen that a lot in cover letters, so be careful with that. But the first tip, research the company. Why do you want to work for them? I take a lot of pride, as you can see my background at UIC. When someone wants to work at UIC, I want to know, well, why UIC, or why that specific department? Why with our student population? And if someone is not able to articulate that, then I know they're looking for a job, which everyone else is, but I think that the candidates that stand out are the ones who really understand the university and the department. So you really want to decipher that job posting, connect the dots for the reader. This is not you writing your entire career story. You're simply taking key experiences that align with what that employer is looking for. And this is when you go back to those reflection pieces, right? So your accomplishments, your contributions, what is applicable for this particular position. You want to make it concise. You want to keep it to one page, and that it's legible, that the font is easy to read. And of course, don't forget to ask for the interview. And this is just some basics based on what I have seen with some cover letters. And of course, you can ask me about it a little bit later if you have any specific questions, because I'm sure that people on the call have a ton of questions. All right, so one piece that I really wanted to focus on today are LinkedIn Essentials, because this is really the platform that we are using a lot from both the job seeker and the recruiter standpoint. This is how you create that online presence. Many of you may have a LinkedIn profile, but I know working with clients and students, you may have not revisited or even looked at your LinkedIn profile. I like to tell my students that it's collected virtual dust. So you need to go back and look at your profile. You want to make sure you have a professional headshot. I was talking to a recruiter recently, and she said that that's actually one of the things that she notices before connecting with someone or even looking at their profile. LinkedIn allows you to create a tagline. This is your opportunity to showcase your brand. What are you looking for? What is it that you represent? That tagline doesn't need to be restricted to one word. You can add multiple phrases on there. You want to add a short summary. Again, this is an opportunity to integrate those keywords. So think of LinkedIn as your professional website. If someone goes into your profile, they're going to read a little bit about who you are, and that summary is a great opportunity to incorporate some things that you want to show off, to share with employers, to share with your connections. You want to list your experience, but also list descriptions. You know, what have you accomplished in those roles? Now, you don't have to copy and paste everything from your resume. You know, what do you feel is most relevant that you would want a visitor of your profile to know about you and your experiences? The other thing that employers have noted that they really like to see is when people include media. So any type of, let's say if you've done some presentations, maybe pictures of you being on a panel or a certification, anything that you feel that you can share, upload that to the media. Make sure you add your top skills. Again, these are keywords. So when you're looking on through job postings, they may be looking for specific qualifications. Those are things that you can include in your skills, because when a recruiter is doing a search on LinkedIn, that's what they're going to be using. So you want to be able to be searchable. You want to make sure you connect with professionals, former supervisors, colleagues, and mentors, and of course, ask for recommendations. Now, one of the things that I want to share with you today is how to leverage LinkedIn during this time. So I'm going to go ahead, and I'm probably going to lose the page again. So bear with me, and I appreciate your patience. We're going to visit LinkedIn. All right. I'm just going to look at the video here. Karen, could you just nod for me that you can see the screen, the LinkedIn screen? Perfect. All right, wonderful. So I have here my cheat sheet, so I make sure that I can stay on track. As when we're looking through LinkedIn, one of the things that I want you to do if you are on the job search, you're going to go to your profile. So you're going to click on me, settings and privacy. And then on the left-hand side, under account, job seeking preferences, let recruiters know you're open to opportunities. Make sure you change that. I was talking to a recruiter last week, and she said to me, I asked her, you know, how do you find people on LinkedIn? And she's like, this is the first step. So I need to know that people are actually looking. So this is an easy step. So make sure you change your preferences. So that's one step of what you can do. And then the next step is follow companies of interest. So that list that we saw earlier, if there are some opportunities or companies that you know are hiring that you're curious about, you know, search for them. I had mentioned Academy. I'm not the best typist. That is not on my list of skills. American Academy of Pediatrics. So let's use that as an example. So you find this organization, and what you want to do is you want to follow them, because then you'll be receiving information about them on your feed. But let's say this is an organization that you're interested in, you like their mission. On the right-hand side of their page, you'll find similar pages. So here are additional ideas of companies that you might want to look into as well. So that's one step. And then you'll see here if you have any connections that are affiliated with that organization. Then you can see if they have any posted jobs. And then of course, anything else that you might want to learn about them that they're posting. And right now, everybody is heavy on LinkedIn, sharing opportunities and information. The next step, if you go to see all 853 employees, you look at the employees, and this is where you can connect with recruiters. So if you go to the all filters, and then you're going to scroll down, and we're going to find the title. I have here talent acquisition. As you can see, I walk a lot of job seekers through this process. We're going to do talent acquisition. You can do recruiter, and then we're going to go ahead and hit apply. So here we have our recruiters for American Academy of Pediatrics. Now, when you visit their profile, you want to make sure that, well, I'm connected to this person, but you're going to connect. LinkedIn, you want to make sure that you customize those connection requests, and why it is that you want to connect with them. But before you make any connections, you want to ensure that your profile is complete, because if you can try to connect with a recruiter and they are interested in you, they're going to look at your profile. So be intentional with that message and why you want to connect with them. But I often ask recruiters, because I know that a lot of job seekers will say, oh, I don't want to bother them, or is that being too pushy? I ask recruiters all the time, what do you think about people reaching out to you via LinkedIn? And they'll say, well, that's what it's for. I'm looking for candidates, but we ask that they customize their request and why are they trying to connect with us? So this is based on some of the employers that I've interacted with. Okay, the other feature that I want to share with you, if you type in University of Illinois at Chicago, and I already have it here, so I'm going to go ahead and click on it. Save us a few seconds. This is good for a variety of reasons, especially my new recent graduates. So if you visit the UIC site, you're going to find the alumni tool. So if you click on alumni, and this is awesome because I've been on LinkedIn for a long time, and I'm seeing 178,000 alumni on LinkedIn that have profiles. So here you get to see a distribution of where they live, where they work, what they do, what they studied. But let's say, for instance, I'm interested in connecting with alumni that are doing professional development. That's my area. So I'm going to go ahead and do a search on that. So I get to see where they work. All right, so it's a long list. So here again, I'm adding to my list of companies. And then I get to see people's profiles and job titles. Because I know that sometimes people try to figure out that too, like what kind of job titles should I be looking at? And then this is a great way to connect with alumni, which I'm going to talk about informational interviews. Let me tell you, as an alum, I love when people reach out to me for informational interviews, and I have found that UIC alumni in general are pretty good at responding to requests. Of course, we're going to be mindful, but this is a tool that you can use, and again, customizing that request. The other thing that I wanted to show you is if you click on at the top under jobs, again, I'm going to type in professional development. I'm going to do a search. I know City Year's hiring. So if you're looking through this, look at the time when they posted jobs, right? So you know that they are recent. I find that people apply for jobs, they're like, oh, let's apply to this, but it's like 30 days old. Try to apply to things that are more current, and LinkedIn gives you that. And then also put an alert. So if you're looking for a specific area, put an alert, and you'll be getting emails on those job preferences. Make sure you connect with groups. There are a lot of specific groups. So if you're interested in entering the financial field, there are groups for that. There are groups for everything. There's groups for career development. My colleague and I were a part of a group called Government College Relations Council. We have a group for that. If you're interested in government, I know a lot of the government agencies will post opportunities through there. So definitely join groups, maximize that feature, because you'll be surprised what kind of great resources are shared through that platform. And last but not least, if you are going to be on LinkedIn, make yourself visible by sharing content. When you see maybe someone posted something, you know, comment on it, or maybe you have an affinity for a certain area that you want to share experience on something. Maybe you're into, you know, social justice, climate change, anything that speaks to your brand and that you want to share with the community. Share an article. People will read things and you start establishing your brand in a specific area. So leverage that. All right. Let's see. Oh, good. Okay, I was going to attempt. I'm like, I hope I didn't lose my spot. All right. So there are a ton of virtual opportunities that you can participate in now. So there are career panels. There are career fairs, virtual meetups. And I wanted to share a few with you today. So on LinkedIn, I was perusing through some resources and I came across HireWell. And HireWell is a staffing agency, but it was really cool because they had recruiters that were talking about the clients that they're working with, and now the clients are actually companies that are looking to recruit candidates, and they are basically sharing opportunities that they're looking to fill. So it was a nice live program. And so if you go on LinkedIn and you search HireWell, you can follow them, and they have presentations on salary negotiation, job search strategies, and this is insight coming from recruiters. So it's always good to get that perspective as well. So you may want to check out HireWell. There are a ton of career fairs. One in particular, Lit Careers. So this one is happening mid-July. So you can register through LinkedIn as well. So you can see everything's on LinkedIn. There's another opportunity, as I had mentioned earlier, the Government College Relations Council. So if you're interested in federal employment opportunities, they will have a panel with a few representatives here. Now, if you are a UIC grad, recent grad, you need to be familiar with UIC Career Services. And if you go to their website right now, I am so amazed at all the tools that are available, and these panels are on there as well. So you can find the link to some of these presentations on there as well. And then here's another one for working for the IRS, and then another virtual career fair. So I actually did a search on LinkedIn for job fairs, and this is one that popped up. So if you are interested in participating in one, this might be a good idea. So that could be part of the plan. You can do this. Okay, so conducting informational interviews. I just want to kind of gauge the audience. What are some thoughts that come to mind? It could be one-word phrases when you think about having to conduct an informational interview. I'm curious.
If you want to put it in chat, I can go ahead and read them to Liz.
Yes, please.
Great. Not sure if that was a response.
Great. Oh, good.
I may put up the link to the slides, and I will just remind everybody we will make these slides available because I see people taking some notes, and so they will be available for you. Effective, informative, learn lots of great information from professionals, explore without pressure, gives you ideas, helpful, Had one today amazing. A great way to network. Hold on, they're going quicker than I can read. Build network, informative and great networking opportunity, easier than a formal interview and insightful into the company, has led to a position. And then so one person said they've not participated in one yet.
Okay, good. So we have some pros here with informational interviews. I'm just going to address for those who maybe are not as comfortable or they haven't started. An informational interview is a great way to really, learn about someone's career path, but also organizational culture. So going back to your values, what is it that you value in a position? And this is something that you can learn from someone that actually works within that organization. You want to go in with an open mind and listen and get some insights. I've done informational interviews just to learn more about my field, and I just always, I learn something new all the time. So I think it's a great experience, and you're connecting with another human being. You're having a conversation. I don't like the word networking. I'm an introvert, so for me, it's like making meaningful connections and just really taking part in dialogue and just being, aware and valuing people's time.
And Liz, if I can just jump in real quickly, we had at least 3 people that said nerve-wracking. So maybe just addressing the, reaching out to somebody that you don't know, and you just said you're an introvert, and so just how to maybe work through some of that.
It can be nerve-wracking for sure, because a lot of my students will say, I don't want to say the wrong thing, I don't want to offend someone. Here on this, I am actually including a link to informational interview tutorial. And on this website, you will find scripts, emails when reaching out. Of course, you want to customize it. And then also questions that you can ask, and then just what the process looks like. It's a great tool. It's through Life Career. So that way you can go through it and familiarize yourself with the process. Again, if you're a recent grad, you work with your career office, but a lot of this information you can use to like step out there. So I mentioned earlier, you have to step out of your comfort zone, and this is one of them. And once you do your first informational interview and you have a good experience, you're going to continue doing them. It'll get easier. The other thing I want to mention is have people introduce you. I know that I've had people reach out to me and they were introduced by a colleague, and then they always ask, is there anybody that you can introduce me to or that you suggest that I reach out to? And I love connecting job seekers and students to other professionals. So I'm always happy to do that for my students. So you never know. Ask your mentors to connect you with professionals in the field. All right. Now, I will say that during the pandemic, during this situation, when reaching out, I think actually I would follow these guidelines regardless. But I thought this was a great article. When reaching out, when you reach out, you want to ask for something specific. You want somebody to be able to help you, so you want to be specific on what you're looking for. So can you tell me what it's like working for XY industry as you made your transition to remote working? So you want to be specific on why you're reaching out to that individual. The next thing, you want to be genuine and empathetic. Right now, we're going through a very challenging time. We're all experiencing different type of challenges. So you may be reaching out to people who are also uncertain about their employment, or maybe they've recently experienced a layoff, or maybe personal challenges in health. So always acknowledge, that we are in a difficult situation and that you value their time. Now, you have to be patient and allow enough time before following up. If you don't hear back, you may not hear back. It's always good to reach out to a nice group of people, as you may experience lower responses, and that's okay. Don't take it personal. There are plenty of people out there that want to talk to you and want to share insight. Let me tell you, being in the career profession, I have found so many career coaches that are providing free resources. I think everybody wants to really help and share their skills and their talents during this time, since we're not all healthcare providers. And then here's an article that includes templates as well, which I have added that to the guide. All right, so I want to just be mindful of time. I want to just quickly share some interview tips. I know there were questions that came in before the presentation about interviews. And I'm going to mostly focus on how we've transitioned to video interviewing. I personally, for my position, I did a video interview. I was interviewed through video. And I know that I have done a ton of interviews where we interview people in their, we review Skype or other platforms, and I see mistakes and good stuff. But one of the things is that you want to prepare your background. So you want to minimize distractions. I've seen, you know, messy closets, cats hanging out. I know right now it's hard, and I think people are being very, you know, are sympathize, and there's things that we can't necessarily control, but try to minimize those distractions. Test your audio, your microphone, and your internet connection. Practice with a friend. If you know that you're going to be using Zoom or WebEx or Google Hangouts, test it out. Make sure that you have access to it and that it sounds good. Dress to impress. So, you know, I'm wearing my dress today, but I'm wearing flip-flops. So as long as you can see you from the waist up, you want to be presentable. People will notice everything. Be mindful. Oh, prepare your success stories. So one way to prepare for an interview is jotting down, you know, brainstorming again, your success stories. Review the posting. I have been on interviews where a lot of people will forget what the job entailed. Visit the company website. One of the first questions we ask is, why do you want to work for this organization? And we know when someone's done their research and when someone has not. Be mindful of your body language. Don't look down. Try to look at the camera. I know it's kind of challenging, but make sure that you're not distracted and that you're paying attention. Be prepared to answer behavioral-based questions. So things like, tell me of a time where you had to learn a new technology. Tell me of a time where you had to deal with conflict. So they want to know how you've performed in the past, because that predicts future performance. So one way to prepare for those is using the STAR method. This is something a lot of our career people use with our students is, you know, when you're answering these questions, if you want to give a nice, solid, strong response, what was the situation? What was the task? What action did you use? And then what was the result? I'm always disappointed when someone is prepping their story and they're like, yeah, and then we did that. I'm like, but what happened? Did you accomplish it? Were you successful? Oh, yes, it was great, and we accomplished X, Y, Z. I'm like, okay, good. That's what I wanted to hear. So that's a nice formula to help you create a nice example. Make sure you have questions to prepare. Ask questions at the end. One question that I always ask is, you know, to make sure you ask the timeline. If you can get so caught up with, okay, I interviewed today, I haven't heard back in a week, I bombed it. But their timeline might be, you might have been the first person they interviewed. So you want to find out, you know, when do I expect to hear from you? When can I follow up? That way you put it organized and, you know, on your Excel sheet, follow up with so-and-so company on this date. Make sure you send a thank you. Now it's common to be interviewed by a committee. So send a thank you to everyone that interviewed you. It's more personal, and you want to do it within 24 hours of the interview. The other thing I wanted to share with you, and I'm a visual person, so I'm going to go back to LinkedIn. I wanted to show you. LinkedIn has some great hidden features. If you go to jobs, it's kind of a random place to put it, but if you go to jobs and then you go to more, there's the interview prep tool. And here you'll find some sample questions. But on the right-hand side, you'll find that there are career strategists, recruiters that actually share examples of how they answered questions, how you can answer that question. If you have premium, then you can unlock even more. But if you don't, it's okay. You still have some resources here. The other resource that I wanted to share with you is called jobinterviewquestions.com. This is also really neat because if you're looking for maybe associate financial representative, it customizes questions for specific areas, and they provide a long list of questions. So this is a great way to prepare. for an interview. All right. And I know we're getting to the end of it. Just some final thoughts. Again, focus on what you can control. Be flexible, be patient. Don't take it personal. I always tell my students, don't take it personal. The job will come. You will have something, but you have to be proactive, be persistent, take breaks, re-energize, and practice self-care. Be confident in your strengths, experience, and abilities. So thank you so much for your attention and for trusting me within this hour with some insight that I was able to offer today. But now I suppose I'm going to open it up to some questions. I think we have a little bit of time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Liz. This was so helpful and so informative. Really appreciate it. And I have to apologize because I realized at the beginning I said you were a College of Business graduate, and I know that you are an LAS graduate. I had been meeting with business earlier today, so it just rolled off my tongue.
No worries.
Oh, well, didn't mean to, misplace. So a couple of questions that have come in. First one is, many applications ask year of your high school graduation. Obviously, they're wanting to determine your age. Should you leave this blank?
That's a great question. That's a tough one, because when you're applying online through the applicant tracking system, because I know I've asked employers this question before too. Unfortunately, if you leave certain questions blank, it might say that you don't qualify, or that the application is incomplete. So I do know that you want to be mindful, especially with ageism and with the application. It's kind of hard to get around that. Now with the resume, there are some strategies there where you want to go 10 years back. You can leave dates out of graduation in your education. But quite frankly, I think that if you're applying somewhere, you want to go somewhere where they're going to value your experience. And I know, like I said before, there are going to be things that there's going to be biases. I think we all experience them in some levels. And I think with the application, I think sometimes it's kind of hard to get around certain questions if you don't want to be disqualified.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I think at UIC it's required that you have to fill out those fields for all education. Thank you for that. Next question, do you have any advice to deal with ghosting?
Can that person elaborate? Like what, in what, I want a little bit more about that.
Okay, so I'll ask the person that asked the question to
yes, please elaborate.
Give us a little more information on ghosting.
Yes,
and I'll go to the next question just for time, and if they want to include some more, we'll come back. Do you recommend getting premium LinkedIn prior to job seeking?
Well, I will say that I've always used the free version because I teach students using the free version, and I think there's so many things that you can still optimize with the platform. However, LinkedIn does provide 30 days of free access to the premium. So if you are on the job hunt right now, I would say take advantage of those 30 days of using the premium, so you can see if you have found value of getting premium. And then if you feel like, okay, I cannot live without these features, then I would say invest in that. Otherwise, I think you can really, if you're savvy with navigating LinkedIn, you can get by with the free version.
Great, thank you. What do you think about T format cover letters, where you summarize job key responsibilities versus your experience and capabilities in table format?
Yes. This is a good question, and I say this because my caveat is that it's a preference. And I think with the whole job search, resumes, cover letters, a lot of this stuff is subjective, and I have heard different things. So some people like it, they're more structured, they like to get to the point. I just want to see the success stories. Whereas I have heard other people say, I hate that, I don't want to see bullet points on a cover letter, I want to hear your story. So it's really difficult for me to answer in general. I think, following a format that you're comfortable with, that you're confident with, that you want to put your best foot forward, focusing on content, on accomplishments, but I have heard mixed reviews on that, and that's something that you can even ask like an informational interview, like, or ask people, like just kind of poll what they think. I always ask questions whenever I have employers in front of me. I always ask questions about resumes and cover letters, and their responses are all over the map. So it is a strategy, and some people do use it, so it's not wrong.
Great. Is there certain industries that use it more often, or is it, again, to your point, all people are, and recruiters are concerned?
I think it's, I couldn't tell you if there's a specific industry that uses it, but I know I have seen it, and I've been in education and in public health. So I've seen it in those areas, but I haven't worked in the corporate world, but I know that typically they like things structured. But again, that's a great question to ask in an informational interview.
Great. I think we have time for just maybe 2 more questions. What kind of information about the company do you advise to have going into an interview?
Yeah, so, again, what is important to you? First, for me, I guess I could speak on my own experience of, what I value. I want to know what's the mission of the organization, maybe the vision of the department. So it depends on the organization, right? So it can be the whole organization, but then also the specific department, because different departments may operate a little differently within the umbrella of the organization. If you value that they take part in community service, if you value professional development, or even maybe, I would see how they've transitioned during this time, right? So a lot of companies will have things on their website and how they're, the steps that they've taken to transition staff into remote or the services. So I think that a website can be very telling in how they operate. But I like to take it beyond the website and looking at their LinkedIn. So what is it that you value? What do you care about? Is it the numbers? Is it revenue? So really, it's going to depend on your industry.
Okay. I lied. I'm going to ask 2 more quick questions just to close out our program. So first one is, what are the key differences in interviews with recruiters versus hiring managers?
Yeah, so again, that can vary. So with recruiters, a lot of times, from my experience, what I have found is that they may have a checklist of questions to see if you meet the minimum requirements. So they might be looking for specific education, maybe certain skill set, maybe you have to know a particular technology, or whatever the case. And they're checking off boxes. Now, I'm generalizing here. This is just based on some experience with recruiters. And just they're trying to get you through the first screening process. The hiring manager, they want to go into more detail. They really want to see, okay, you know how to use Access. You say you're efficient in SPSS. How have you used it? You know how to conduct focus groups. How have you been successful with that? They want you to share the stories. So a lot of times they're going to ask you questions that are more in depth and specific to the role, to see if you're a good fit for the position, but also if you're a good fit for the organization. So it's a little bit more in-depth questions.
Interesting. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, last question.
Yeah.
What is better for a potential job? Reaching out to the recruiter first, or reaching out to a person who has a job you have an interest in first?
Ooh, that's a great question. It's like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? I think that I would say both. I feel that if you have connections within the organization, you can certainly reach out to your connections and ask them, what it's like to work there, before going through this whole process. But I don't see why you couldn't connect with both the recruiter and someone on the inside. You're going to get 2 different takes. So the person on the inside can share insight that maybe is not completely transparent from the organization. Now, if it's hard to get a hold of a recruiter, because I know that can be the case as well, right? Especially if they're flooded with applications and people contacting them. If you're able to connect with someone on the inside and you establish rapport with them, right? Because it takes time to build that and nurture those relationships. They can provide insight on potential job opportunities. Now, you're not asking for a job like in an informational interview, but if they know you're looking and you have this connection, and you know what you're looking for, they can essentially be an advocate for you within the organization, and that is common. People on the inside, if they know that you're looking and they can vouch for you and there are opportunities, that is a way to really get into an organization, and I have seen that happen a lot.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Liz, and thank you for this wonderful presentation and discussion. We really appreciate it. Just as a reminder to everybody, we did record this session and it will be available along with Liz's presentation at the Alumni Exchange website. Tomorrow on Wednesday, June 24th, please join us for our next Alumni Exchange event at 4 p.m. Central Time, featuring two UIC College of Pharmacy alumni, Dr. L. Edwards and Dr. Tom Kanik, who will present an interactive discussion on COVID-19 and a path to a vaccine. We do have some additional career-focused alumni exchange programming in July, so please go and check out our website at go.uic.edu/alumni exchange. And of course, please be on the lookout for our survey. Thank you again to Liz for all of your time and your talent and sharing everything with us this evening. And thank you to all of us for joining us at the UIC Alumni Exchange. We look forward to seeing you in a future program. Have a great rest of your evening. Thanks again.